tower, one of the Trade Center towers. Lieutenant Adam O'Hare was in charge of securing the piece of steel. What he remembers is he learned the availability of a World Trade Center artifact through an advertisement through the New York, New Jersey Port Authority. It was placed on the website of firefighterclosecalls.com. In September of 2009, he sent a letter to the Port Authority requesting an artifact that weighed up to 1 ton. Every few months he would hear back from someone from the Port Authority saying that it was being worked on, and thanks for our patience. In January 2011, we finally heard we were able to receive a piece in April. He was contacted and set up time up for pickup down at JFK Hangar 17 when we went and picked up the piece of steel on Wednesday, May 11th. We sent 4 firefighters down there along with the pickup to go pick it up. Once we had possession of the steel, we looked for help designing a memorial that would last a lifetime, and who would better to do that than David Stein and Silver Petrocelli architects, who also designed the new beautiful firehouse. David jumped on the idea and came up with a bunch of designs which were incredible and hard to choose from. The Fire Association decided to go with Mary Baccar's design. Reason being is that when people see the beam, the first thing they like to do is they want to touch it and feel the impact of the devastation that occurred that day. Also, so with the design, all people of all ages can touch by and pat and touch a piece of history. Then the real work began. The Fire Association banded together and worked as a team to complete the memorial. We started construction trying to figure out how or the best way to build and construct the pool was. At first glance, the print and thought process didn't seem that hard, but reality soon hit hard when we started learning how in-depth it was building the pool and how expensive it gets. We needed help in a hurry. So we reached out to an old friend of the fire department who came to our rescue. Once again, we were back on track, so we thought Hurricane Irene hit and put a damper on things. During Irene, we responded to over 100 fire calls and a structure fire. For in perspective, the average fire calls we respond to is about 400 calls per year. So to get over 100 in a 3-day span was taxing. But we did it, and the guys came through and worked all together. After Irene's wrath, the department was wiped out and exhausted, but the 9/11 deadline was still looming over our heads. And if anybody doesn't know, as the fire department, we do not miss a deadline ever. So last Saturday night, we started work again on the memorial. Then Tropical Storm Lee hit Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday morning. Tuesday night we had a tent up, but it really didn't help. We were up to our knees in mud and water, and it was like a monsoon with the rain. Hope started to dwindle, but once again we banded together to get the job done as a team. We had a bunch of members take off their time from their jobs to work for what we see today. Also, during Irene, we also had a lot of people that took time off of work to help the residents in Woodbridge. At this time, I would like to thank Larry Lacey of Gunite Pool Associates, who came to our rescue to make this day possible. Our hat is off to you, Larry. As the chief, I could not be prouder of our department and what we've accomplished in such a short amount of time with so much going on. The amazing thing was there were no fights or bickering, and we worked all together, which made it even better, and I'm so proud of you guys. Thank you. At this time, we would would also like to thank all the wives, girlfriends, and children of the members who have not really seen much of us due to the fact of the hurricane and the memorial. So thank you. I met with the Woodbridge Garden Club about 3.5 weeks ago to see if they were interested in being part of the design and planning and planting of the beautiful plantings that you see here today. I did not know what to expect from them for help, but Friday night was amazing to see how many Garden Club members came out and got the job done in only a few hours. So on behalf of the fire department, thank you. The project also could not have happened without the generosity of Connecticut Stone and Bree Baker, who bent over backwards for us and donated the pavers and granite that you see here today to make the memorial. Lastly, we would like to thank everyone that donated, whether it be money, food, or material, to make today possible. If you look on the back of your program, you will see a list of all the donors. At this time, I would like to introduce our MC for the rest of the program, Bob Wardle.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out this morning. 10th anniversary of 9/11. We got a beautiful morning today, so we hope we can all enjoy it. At this point, I'd like to ask our chaplain, one of our fellow firefighters, member of the Board of Selectmen, Thomas Gentic, for the invocation.
O Lord, be with us today as we seek to give expression to our sense of loss, as well as to express our pride in those who stood by their posts in a time of great trial. We are here today to remember all those who suffered and died on September 11, 2001 in New York, Pennsylvania, and at the Pentagon. We also need to remember those who still live and who suffer because of the events of that day. When we recall the firefighters who rushed into the towers as most everyone else was racing out, and who died while in the line of duty, we remember their selfless service and sacrifice. When we recall the police officers who stood to protect and defend until the towers came crashing down, we remember selfless sacrifice. When we recall the thousands of workers, men and women, mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, people of all faiths and nationalities, we remember the tragic loss of human life. When we recall our men and women serving around the world, we remember their unwavering courage. So it is appropriate that today we remember and honor those whose actions embody the best of what we of a nation are capable of. By whatever faith we live, we gather today as a community. Lord, help us to remember what it means to be Americans. Help us to remember that we are a people endowed with abundant blessings. Help us to cherish the freedoms we enjoy and inspire us to stand with courage, united as one nation in the midst of any adversity. Amen.
Thank you, Tom. At this point, would everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? For those who are capable of doing so, you'll be standing for a little while. It's coming out.
Okay, present the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like this time to call Ms. Madeline Baker. She's a student at Amity Middle School in Bethany, and Fabian Ortiz on the keyboard for the singing of the national anthem. You may be seated for a moment, please. We have a tradition in Woodbridge, when we do some Memorial Day, where we present a wreath, place it by our memorial stone, which we have relocated here to this memorial center down on the wall. Two of our firefighters here, Lieutenant Art Anderson and firefighter Mike Silvestrini, have sons who are currently on active duty with the United States Marine Corps. Lieutenant Anderson's son is also one of our firefighters. I'd like to call on them now to please present the wreath, place it in the stone.
Presented the wreath was Mike Beth Walters. So they will have somebody there.
Would everyone please rise again? We'll have three volleys salute, followed by the playing caps by Mr. Frank Calistro, and the playing of Amazing Grace by Ed Evanston, bagpiper from the Connecticut Firefighter Pipe and Drum Corps. be seated. Before I introduce our speakers this morning, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Woodbridge Police Department for their help this morning in conducting all of the ceremony that you're witnessing right now, this moment in history. I'd like to start calling Ed Sheehy, our first selectman, to give us a few of his thoughts on this occasion.
Good morning, everyone, on this beautiful day. Day not unlike the day 10 years ago. 10 years ago today, 19 al-Qaeda terrorists shocked the American conscience by attacking innocent civilians in New York City, Washington, D.C., and in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. 10 years have passed, and we continue to mourn those family members, friends, neighbors, and countrymen who were taken from us on that day. 2,983 in number. We also continue to honor the heroism of the first responders, police, firefighters, emergency medical workers, and search and rescue crews who responded and risked and even lost their own lives in search of survivors at the places of attack. Today, across the country, in ceremonies like this, Americans are gathering to remember and honor those who died or were injured and those who came to their rescue. Here in Woodbridge, we not only have such a ceremony, but also a memorial dedication incorporating a piece of structural steel from the World Trade Center, the site of one of the attacks, and displaying it in a prominent public place in front of our new firehouse. The Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association, as you heard earlier, made arrangements to obtain this piece of structural steel from the original World Trade Center and transport it to Woodbridge. Over the past week, members of the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association have worked tirelessly, volunteering their services, material, and labor to construct this fitting memorial. Silver and Petrocelli, the architects who designed our new firehouse, also volunteered their services and held a competition among their architects to design this memorial. 7 designs were submitted to the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association, who chose the design we dedicate today. The memorial you see here today was designed by Mary Bakar of Silver Petrocelli, who 10 years ago today was standing under Tower 2, which was struck by the second plane. Each designer included remarks with their designs. In her remarks, Mary Bakar stated, "The events of 9/11 impacted everyone in a different way. For me, what happened that day literally changed my life. A New Yorker at the time, I was standing under Tower 2 when it was struck by the second plane. The events that day and the days and weeks that followed led me to reconsider my place in life, and I pulled up my stakes and relocated to Connecticut. When I think back to that day, I think of the imprint that single event left on my life and the lives of so many people around the world." The events of 9/11 have also touched the lives of 4 Woodbridge families. Virginia Murphy and her late husband, attorney Bill Murphy, who lost their son Christopher. Elaine and Dick Hayes, who lost their son-in-law, Paul Friedman. Joseph and Gabe Orland, and Michael and Beth Walter, who you saw earlier this morning, lost their nephew and cousin respectively, Joseph Paul McDonald. So as we pause today to remember the events of 9/11 and dedicate this memorial, I would like to thank, on behalf of the residents of the town of Woodbridge, our own first responders, who responded to Hurricane Irene over the past 10 days. The Woodbridge Police Department, the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association, the Woodbridge Public Works Department, and the Woodbridge Human Services, who worked together with UI personnel not only to restore electricity as soon as possible, but also to keep our town safe, for which we thank you. So on this 10th anniversary of 9/11, we dedicate this memorial and thank the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association and Silver Petrocelli for volunteering their services, and the Woodbridge Garden Club for arranging these beautiful floral displays so that Woodbridge can have a lasting memorial to those who died on that final day.
Thank you, Ed. The next speaker is going to be David Stein, the architect of our firehouse, principal of Silver Petrocelli and Associates. Just a little story as to how some of this all came about, as he alluded to. I guess they held a competition in the architectural office to design this memorial that we have today. 7 designs were submitted and were looked at extensively by the members of the association. We spent a lot of time going over them, looking at what we thought were advantages, disadvantages, pros and cons of each of the designs. We didn't really look too much at the stories that went behind. We looked mostly at the presentations themselves and how we thought it would fit in the center of town and how it would be received by the public and what kind of an image it could portray. Mary's design was picked after a rather long special meeting that we held at the end of May, and it was chosen singly for the sole reason that it was down at ground level, and the students could come over here from Beach Road School and literally reach out and touch a piece of history. And that was felt by our membership to be of extreme importance over most of the other designs, which tended to keep the piece of steel elevated and aloft. So the stories didn't have as much to do with our thought process as did the actual desire to really make this reachable by everybody. Anybody who was confined to a wheelchair, anybody who was on crutches, everybody would be able to come up and touch this. So this time I'd like to ask David Stein to come up and speak about some of the processes that they went through in doing this and fitting this in with what he had already designed for us in the center of town here.
Morning, everyone. As we approached this design process, we knew that this was much different than any of our traditional designs that we've done in the past. My partners knew that this wasn't just going to come from one of the individuals within our firm, that we wanted to open it up to any or all of the 35 architects and engineers within our office. We met during lunch, hours after work, and collaborated. Immediately, we knew that this design process had a universal message. Every one of us had a personal experience that we're able to draw, but out of anything, there's a universal message as to how this design was going to be presented to future generations. As you stand before this artifact that was carefully taken from the rubble, preserved, and to be preserved for future generations, the design shows that it now stands tall, straight, and proud. A famous architect, Louis Kahn, once said that steel and concrete has an ego. I think we feel it has much more. Steel represents strength, represents stability, represents ingenuity, and I think more important, it represents resilience. These are the metaphors that bind this community and the communities across this country. But 10 years ago, we all learned that those principles are fragile. Mary's design takes that piece of steel, and when you come up and you have an opportunity to look closer, you'll see that it's elevated slightly above the water, almost defying gravity. Water has been used for centuries to calm the senses. As you stand before this memorial, you may see a reflection of yourself, allowing you to contemplate the past and, more important, the future. At night, spotlights cast a silhouette against the white clapboard building, creating the illusion of 2 towers. This memorial is intended for everyone to see as you walk by, as you drive by, and more important, have the opportunity to come up and touch. 10 years to this day, this piece of steel has finally found its resting place for future generations. with strength, stability, ingenuity, integrity, and resilience. As the footstone says, never forget. And more importantly, this will never happen again. On behalf of every member of our team, we thank you for the honor of being a part of this historical day. Thank you.
As Chief Rowland and as Jeannie alluded to a moment ago, the plantings that you see all around through here, I'm going to tell you, I'm coming here every night after work and whatnot for the last several weeks, looking at the progress. And Thursday night, this place was destroyed. I mean, destroyed. It was a mud hole. And to see it transform this quickly from Thursday night to today, and what we see now is just amazing. We have to thank for that the Woodbridge Garden Club. They did a tremendous amount of work getting all this straightened out. I'd like to ask the representative from the Woodbridge Garden Club to come up now and share some of her thoughts as to what they've done here.
Hi, my name is Leslie Martino. I'm the landscape designer who designed the plan for the Garden Club, and I'm representing our past and current presidents, Fran Morrow and Susan Hildebrand, who really spearheaded this project for the Garden Club in pulling this together very quickly in the efforts of design, funding, and implementation to support the design for the memorial. Honor and sacrifice are the words of the day and have been exemplified in many ways. I think all of us know exactly where we were and what we were doing the morning of 9/11. Garden Club members were preparing for a meeting at noon, and we still showed up in Mary Ann Tyler's backyard because we didn't know what else to do. We were scared, incredulous, shocked, saddened, angry, and confused. And we didn't know what was going to happen next or where. And as the days and weeks went by, we continued to grapple with a wide range of emotions as we began to comprehend the enormity of the tragedy, the meaning of terrorism, the depth of human spirit, and a broader definition of heroism, as well as what it means to be an American. For our family, we wanted our boys to comprehend the enormity of the situation, to never forget the sacrifice of those who perished, and to understand the heroism of so many. In the video game in which we live in our house, the images on TV could not have been real in our minds. We needed to make them real. That is not to say that, like so many who didn't know firsthand someone who was lost that day, we were not immune to the relatives and friends of friends who felt that pain. We packed up the car the first weekend in December and drove past the void in the Manhattan skyline down to Virginia to the Pentagon. I dressed the boys in red, white, and blue, and we proceeded to visit the monuments that honor the sacrifices of past generations of those who shaped America, giving us the freedoms we cherish today. Washington was a ghost town at that time, and Gary and I, having grown up in military families, were trying in our own way to say that we weren't going to be intimidated, and we were going to keep on living our American lives. 10 years later, in the name of freedom, we found ourselves honoring the sacrifice of one of Woodbridge's own and one of our boys' childhood friends, Eric Safree. Again, those words, honor and sacrifice. It's important to remain cognizant of the meaning of those two words. This memorial in the town of Woodbridge will help us do that. We thank the firefighters for their efforts to make this memorial happen and for all the effort that went into the acquisition of the beam from the North Tower, as well as all of the construction efforts. The Garden Club was honored to have participated in the process. After talking with the members who rallied on Friday night and getting a sense of their feeling, the comments were unanimous. We really felt a sense of community, working side by side with the firefighters and Adam Parsons and his crew to get everything planted and mulched before we would partake in the wonderful hot dogs and burgers that had been prepared for us. So we thank you, Sean, for allowing us to, for a brief period of time, be part of your team. It made your sacrifice and daily readiness and willingness to respond to the catastrophic events of our lives quite real to us, and thank you very much.
I'd like to call now one of our sons of one of our members. He's from Eagle Scout Troop 907 here in Woodbridge, Adam Konworski. He's going to read a poem called We Remember Them by Demons and Reamer.
We remember them. At the rising of the sun and its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the shining of the sun and the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and at its end, we remember them. As we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us, as we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. Then we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us, as we remember.
We now have a proclamation from Governor of the State of Connecticut, Penelope Malloy. It's going to be read by our Assistant Chief, Chris Perrietti. By His Excellency Daniel P. Malloy, Governor, an official statement. Whereas the state of Connecticut commemorates September 11th as Honor Our Heroes and Remembrance Day, and whereas the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Department has erected a memorial incorporating a piece of steel from the World Trade Center to memorialize the victims of September 11th, 2001, as well as those who have given their lives fighting for our freedom, and those performing emergency services in communities everywhere. And whereas the events of that day instantly transformed many lives through personal loss and a sense of individual and national vulnerability. And whereas a united nation arose from a collective shock, sustained in an outpouring of national spirit, pride, selflessness, generosity, courage, and voluntary service. And whereas on that day, and the immediate days that followed, many brave men and women courageously assisted in difficult and dangerous rescue and recovery efforts, in many cases sacrificing their own well-being for their fellow Americans. And whereas the creation of memorials and monuments honoring lives lost on September 11th, 2001, as well as the efforts of those who aided in rescue, recovery, and voluntary service efforts are necessary, proper and fitting, but alone cannot capture the nation's desire to pay tribute in a meaningful way. And whereas many citizens wish to memorialize September 11th, 2001, and on September 11th, 2011, those wishing to pay tribute to those who lost their lives can participate in a dedication ceremony at the Woodbridge Fire Department now. Therefore, I, Daniel P. Malloy, Governor of the State of Connecticut, do hereby officially proclaim honor and recognition upon the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Department. In the state of Connecticut, I urge all citizens to recognize this memorial as we take September 11th, 2011, to remember those who we have lost. I'd now like to call Lieutenant Al Corner, one of our firefighters, to read a letter from Congresswoman Rose DeLore from the 3rd District.
Dear friends, today we gather to remember a national tragedy that none of us can ever forget. the events of September 11, 2001 played out before the eyes of the world. Its images of horror and heroism are forever ingrained in our minds. When the towers fell, they took so many dear to us and created a stark and tragic imagery that we all still relive. Yet in the wake of that tremendous act of evil, our nation experienced a powerful moment of solidarity, as if to say, you will not dampen our spirits, you will not break our will, you will not dull our sense of outrage, we will not be demoralized by your immoral acts. This solidarity was particularly clear when so many of our state's emergency responders immediately set out to help, and it continued with thousands of volunteers who have gathered since to memorialize those we lost and ensure that we always remember the precious lives that were lost that day. We remember September 11th as a day of when our national perspective was forever altered, our sense of national unity challenged, but as this event reminds us, even 10 years later, the tragedies also strengthened our sense of community. I am still proud to remember the courageous way Americans, and particularly the residents of Connecticut, came together and responded. Today, 10 years after the tragedy that defines this chapter in our history, let us draw strength from the knowledge that, in the face of such evil, we are still a nation and a community united. Today we gather to dedicate this new memorial, not only to remember the fallen of 9/11 and their families, but to ensure that future generations never forget how 1 minute, in 1 hour, in 1 day can change everything. Thank you for the kind invitation to join you today. God bless. Sincerely, Rosa L. DeLora, member of the United States Congress.
Thank you, Al. I'd like to call State Senator Joe Crisco and State Representative Emma Claridis to say a few words.
Good morning, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the town of Woodbridge for having such a wonderful ceremony, honoring people that should be honored every day. I want to thank the first responders, police department, fire department, the town of Woodbridge, human services, public works, any and all that are here fighting for us each and every day, waking up every morning and putting their lives on the line. What began as a beautiful Tuesday morning in September and ended as a day like no other in our nation's history. September 11th will remain etched in the hearts and minds of every American who lived through this horrific event. It has become a fixed memory, which will endure as one of the most tragic days in the history of our nation and our world. We must never forget the countless acts of heroism and compassion demonstrated by those who found themselves caught in the center of this tragedy. We must never forget those Americans who were inspired to serve in our armed forces, who have put themselves in harm's way, and who have fought and died to protect and defend this great nation. We must never forget their patriotism and love of country in bravely echoing the words President George W. Bush spoke in response to the tragedy of September 11th. We will not waver. We will not tire. We will not falter. And we will not fail. Peace and freedom will prevail. I was thinking this morning, I was at the American Legion in Orange, and when I got up to the podium, having remarks that I wanted to say, I felt overwhelmed all of a sudden with emotion, and all I could think of was that day. Actually, I was with the first selectman that day in his office, and we had it on the TV, and everybody, of course, was wondering exactly what was going on. But the one thing we can take from that is that feeling, and I think Chief Rowland mentioned it, what a team the fire department, everybody that worked on this wonderful memorial is. But more than a team, we're a family. We're a family, regardless of our political affiliation, our religious, ethnic, or geographical background. We are one big family as Americans, and we need to remember that every day. Thank you.
We have an official citation from the General Assembly on behalf of Representative Clarence and myself. Be hereby known to all that the Connecticut General Assembly hereby offers its sincerest congratulations to the Woodbridge Volunteer Fire Association in recognition of the dedication of the September 11th memorial, which contains a piece of steel from the World Trade Center. This memorial will serve as a permanent reminder of the thousands of innocent lives lost, as well as those of the heroes who bravely rushed in to provide immediate assistance. We will never forget and always honor the ultimate sacrifice made by so many first responders, firefighters, and police officers on September 11th, 2001. The entire membership extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. And in conclusion, on behalf of Representative Gladys and myself, let us express our deepest appreciation to the members of the Woodbridge Fire Department for what they do. Life gets so hectic and busy sometimes, we forget to say thank you enough. And we can never say enough times, thank you for what you do. Thank you.
Thank you. At this point in time, I'd like to ask you all to rise again as Chaplain Tom Kenfick comes and delivers the benediction.
May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his spirit shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he smile upon you and give you peace. And may God bless the United States of America. Amen. As we gather today, there is one of our members who cannot be with us. Past Chief Ed Redfield is in hospice in Frankfurt. We ask that you keep him in your prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to now ask Madeline Baker and Fabian to back up and lead us all in singing God Bless America.
Through the night.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out this morning for our ceremony. On behalf of Chief Rowland and ourselves and the members of the Woodbridge Fire Department, we'd like to invite you all to come back inside. We have some refreshments. Feel free to walk around the firehouse, ask questions of any of the firefighters there. And again, thank you all for coming out to help us dedicate this memorial.